There comes a point in your journey where you realize that love isn't something you chase, it's something you become. You start to understand that the way you treat yourself sets the tone for the kind of love you'll receive. You start seeing that your heart was never meant to be auditioning for someone else's validation. When you love yourself enough, you stop begging for crumbs because you finally realize you were always the feast. See, some of us have been praying for the right person, but what if God has been waiting for you to become the right person first? What if the love you're looking for is on the other side of you finally choosing you? This message isn't about pride, it's about power. The power that comes from knowing your worth, walking in it, and allowing it to attract the kind of love that honors your growth, not your wounds. Self-love shifts the vibration of your life and changes what you attract. There's a frequency that comes from knowing your worth that cannot be faked, borrowed, or taught. It's cultivated. When you start valuing yourself, you begin to radiate a different energy into the world. People can sense it. The conversations you tolerate change. The way you show up in rooms changes. You no longer shrink to make others comfortable because you finally understand that smallness was never your calling. There's something about loving yourself enough to say, I will no longer be available for what drains me. You see, before self-love, we often operate from survival mode. We attach ourselves to people because they make us feel seen, not realizing that we're asking them to fill a void that only God and our own healing can fill. But once you step into that awareness of who you are in Christ, you begin to discern between attention and affection, between connection and convenience. And suddenly you're no longer impressed by someone showing up. You're looking for someone who stays aligned. When you love yourself, you start releasing the need to prove your worth. You stop auditioning for love and start attracting it. The law of alignment begins to work in your favor because when your heart is rooted in self-worth, it begins to repel what's not meant for you. You no longer chase validation. You become validation. You no longer beg for love. You embody it. The right person doesn't have to be convinced to see your value. They'll be drawn to it because value recognizes value. And here's the thing. Self-love doesn't mean arrogance. It's not about thinking you're better than others. It's about recognizing that God placed something precious inside you, and you have a responsibility to protect it. It's realizing that your heart, your peace, your body, your energy, they are sacred spaces. And when you stop treating sacred things casually, you stop attracting people who handle you carelessly. Some of you have been wondering why God hasn't sent the one yet. But maybe it's because you're still vibrating on a frequency of fear, insecurity, and scarcity. You're still trying to prove you're lovable instead of knowing that you already are. God can't release what's meant for your healed self while you're still operating as your broken self. That's why he's calling you into self-love, because the version of you that will receive divine love must first know how to give it to herself. Self-love is spiritual warfare because when you decide to love yourself, you're breaking every agreement you made with pain, every lie you believed about being unworthy, and every pattern that told you to settle for less. You're telling the enemy, I know who I am now. You're reclaiming the narrative. You're saying, I refuse to be defined by who left, who hurt me, or who didn't see me. I'm defining myself by who God says I am. And when that happens, your life shifts. The people who were drawn to your brokenness start to fall away. Don't grieve that. It's divine alignment. When your vibration rises, not everyone can breathe that air. Some relationships were sustained by your insecurity. Some connections were built on your silence, your compliance, your fear of being alone. But self-love will teach you that solitude isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's the space where God detoxes your spirit from the need to be chosen and reminds you that you already are. Loving yourself enough means saying no when your spirit is unsettled. It means walking away even when your heart wants to stay. It means trusting that if something costs your peace, it's too expensive. Because when you truly love yourself, peace becomes your priority, not presence. You no longer measure love by how much you can tolerate, but by how much you can thrive. There's power in the energy you give off. When your self-talk shifts, so does your atmosphere. The words you speak to yourself create your reality. If you keep saying, I always attract the wrong people, your spirit agrees. But when you start declaring, I attract love that aligns with my growth, my faith, and my peace, the universe rearranges itself to match that frequency. Self-love teaches you to speak life over your destiny, even when your history tried to convince you that you weren't worthy of it. Understand this. You attract what you believe you deserve. If deep down you believe that love has to hurt to be real, you'll keep choosing pain in disguise. But when you heal, you begin to crave peace over passion, consistency over chemistry, alignment over attention. That's when you start attracting the right person, the one who sees you not just as beautiful, but as sacred. Loving yourself isn't just about affirmations. It's about transformation. It's about unlearning the lies and learning how to stand in your divine identity. When you walk in self-love, you carry a light that confuses the darkness in others. People will feel it. They'll sense the boundaries. They'll either rise to meet you or fall away. And that's how you'll know you're growing. When you stop chasing what's leaving and start nurturing what's staying. The more you love yourself, the more you attract love that mirrors that same frequency, because real love can only recognize what's familiar. If you're operating in self-sabotage, you'll attract people who sabotage you. If you're operating in wholeness, you'll attract people who protect your wholeness. That's why your healing matters. Your self-love is your magnet. It's not about luck, it's about alignment. So when you love yourself enough, the right person won't have to fix you, they'll join you in peace. They won't be intimidated by your light, they'll protect it. They won't compete with your purpose, they'll complement it. Because love that's rooted in self-love doesn't drain you, it develops you, it doesn't control, it cultivates. It doesn't take, it gives. It doesn't confuse, it clarifies. And it all begins with you deciding that you are enough, right here, right now, that you are worthy of the kind of love that doesn't make you question your value. When you love yourself enough, your energy shifts. Your prayers sound different, your standards rise. And you finally realize that the right person doesn't complete you, they meet you where you've already completed yourself. Before you can hold healthy love, you must first hold a healed version of yourself. Because if you don't know who you are, you'll settle for anyone who tells you who you are. When you move through life from a place of broken identity, you begin to see love as rescue instead of partnership. You start expecting people to save you, fix you, or validate you, when in truth, they were never designed to carry that weight. That's why so many relationships feel heavy, because they're carrying the burden of unhealed souls trying to fill each other's emptiness instead of pouring from their wholeness. When your identity is broken, love becomes distorted. You confuse attention with affection. You think chaos is passion. You mistake pain for purpose. You start chasing people who mirror your wounds instead of those who honor your worth. And every time it ends, you question what's wrong with you. Not realizing that the real issue isn't your capacity to love. It's the version of you that keeps choosing love from a place of lack. When you don't know who you are, you'll believe anyone who tells you something nice about yourself. You'll crave affirmation because you haven't yet learned to affirm yourself. And the danger in that is you give others the power to define your value, and anyone you allow to define you will also have the power to diminish you. So when they leave, they take your sense of worth with them, and you're left empty again, waiting for the next person to fill you up. That's the cycle of broken identity. But God didn't create you to live in cycles. He created you for covenant. And covenant begins when you finally see yourself as He does. Before you can attract healthy love, you must know that you were already loved before you ever met anyone. God said, I knew you before I formed you. That means your worth was sealed before your story began. You're not trying to earn love. You're trying to remember it. You're trying to reconnect with the truth that you were loved before you were chosen by anyone else. When your identity is healed, you don't chase validation, you carry revelation. You know that your value doesn't decrease because someone didn't see it. You know that rejection isn't a redirection from love, it's protection from misalignment. Healthy love begins with healthy identity. Because when you know who you are, you stop negotiating your worth. You stop accepting half love. Because you know that you deserve whole love. You stop staying in places that break your peace because you've realized that peace is a form of love too. Broken identity makes you confuse love with dependency. You'll think that needing someone means loving them, but dependency without healing isn't love, it's survival. You become addicted to what they give you emotionally, and that dependency becomes a distraction from your inner emptiness. But healthy love doesn't complete you, it complements you. It doesn't fix your wounds, it helps you heal through them. And when you love from a whole place, you no longer see people as your oxygen, you see them as your reflection. You can't receive what you don't believe you deserve. If deep down you believe you're unworthy, every act of love will feel suspicious. You'll question motives, sabotage connection, and doubt sincerity because brokenness makes you misinterpret good love through the lens of past hurt. That's why God often isolates you before elevation because he needs to detox your perception of love. He needs to heal your sight so you can recognize the real thing when it comes. The truth is, love won't find you when you're pretending. It'll find you when you're authentic. Because love that's divine can only attach to truth. When you're pretending to be strong while broken, you attract people who feed your facade. But when you embrace your healing and allow yourself to be vulnerable, you attract people who feed your soul. Broken identity says, if they leave, I'll fall apart. But healed identity says, if they leave, I'll still be whole. Sometimes we ask God for love, but he gives us solitude first. Because he knows if he gave you love before healing, you'd worship the person instead of the process. You'd build your self-worth around their attention instead of God's affirmation. And that's not partnership. That's dependency disguised as devotion. That's why God will hide you for a season. He'll let the wrong people overlook you so that you can stop seeking validation in their sight and start seeking clarity in his voice. When your identity is broken, you build connections out of loneliness. But when your identity is whole, you build them out of purpose. You no longer connect based on chemistry. You connect based on calling. You stop asking, do they like me? And start asking, can they walk with me? Because you've learned that not everyone who's attracted to you is assigned to you. Healing your identity means learning how to be loved without losing yourself. It means setting boundaries not because you're afraid of love, but because you finally respect your peace. It means knowing that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. When your identity is rooted in God, you stop settling for emotional scraps because you know you're a full course meal. You stop accepting inconsistency because you know that love is patient, not confusing. So many people miss divine connections because they're still trying to fix themselves through relationships. But you can't receive what you're not ready to sustain. If love finds you before you've found yourself, it will mirror your confusion. But when love meets you after healing, it will mirror your wholeness. That's the difference between attachment and alignment. Attachment feeds your fear of being alone. Alignment feeds your purpose in being whole. God wants to love you first so you'll recognize love later. He wants you to know what peace feels like so you won't confuse chaos for passion. He wants you to know your worth so you won't tolerate being treated less than divine, because healthy love can't exist where broken identity still lives. You can't pour from an empty soul, and you can't receive love through a shattered mirror. Healing your identity is about picking up those broken pieces and letting God show you what you look like through his eyes. It's about rewriting the story that told you you're not enough, because the truth is you've always been enough. You've just been living below your reflection. And when you finally heal that identity, something shifts. You no longer chase love, you attract it. You no longer beg for attention, you command respect. You no longer ask, will they choose me, because you've already chosen yourself. That's when healthy love can enter your life, because now it doesn't have to heal you, it gets to meet you. Sometimes the delay isn't denial, it's development. We pray for love, for partnership, for the one. And when it doesn't show up on our timeline, we start to wonder if God forgot about us. But God's timing isn't punishment, it's protection. He doesn't withhold love to hurt you, He withholds it to prepare you. Because divine blessings require divine maturity. You can't sustain what you haven't been strengthened to carry. You can't nurture what you haven't learned to value. God won't send what your heart isn't ready to handle. See, love is not a prize you win, it's a purpose you steward. And stewardship demands readiness. You can't pray for a healthy relationship while living in unhealthy patterns. You can't ask God for peace while entertaining chaos. You can't ask Him for commitment while you still fear intimacy. God knows that if He gave you the right person at the wrong time, you'd mishandle them from a wounded place. You'd love them with your fears instead of your faith. You'd hold them hostage to your insecurities instead of embracing them from your wholeness. That's why before He gives you what you prayed for, He'll give you a season that prepares you for it. Preparation seasons feel lonely, but they are sacred. That's where God teaches you to be the kind of person who can hold what you're asking for. Because if He gave it too soon, the weight of it would crush you. Many people pray for love, but aren't ready for accountability, honesty, and emotional responsibility, the pillars that sustain real connection. We say, God, send me someone who won't leave, but we haven't yet learned to stop running ourselves. We say, God, send me a partner who communicates, but we haven't yet learned how to listen without defense. So He waits. He loves us enough to delay our desires until they can't destroy us. God isn't interested in short-term blessings. He's interested in eternal fruit. That means He'll prune your life before He plants your promise. He'll remove distractions, break attachments, and call you to higher standards, because you can't attract a covenant while living in compromise. Preparation seasons are God's way of refining your character to match your calling. When you start walking in obedience, your standards rise, not out of arrogance, but alignment. You stop accepting people who aren't built to go where you're headed. You stop mistaking chemistry for compatibility. You start recognizing that the kind of love you're praying for requires spiritual depth, not just emotional connection. The reason God hasn't sent the one yet might not be because they don't exist. It might be because your foundation still needs healing. Imagine trying to build a mansion on shaky ground. It won't stand no matter how beautiful it looks. That's how relationships crumble when built on unhealed foundations. God is too wise to give you a blessing you're not built to protect. So instead of sending a person, He sends a process. And that process exposes your triggers, your wounds, your patterns, everything that needs to be purified so love can find a safe home within you. Sometimes God's silence is the classroom where He teaches you how to be ready. You'll notice Him testing your patience, your boundaries, your self-worth. You'll face seasons that stretch your faith because He's teaching you to rely on Him first, not a relationship. You'll go through seasons where it feels like everyone else is finding love and you're left behind. But that's not rejection, it's refinement. God is setting your table, but He's not rushing the meal. He's ensuring that when He serves you that divine partnership, you'll have the emotional and spiritual appetite to appreciate it. Here's the truth: what you attract reflects your level of readiness. If you keep attracting people who drain you, it's not a sign that love doesn't exist. It's a sign that you're still entertaining from your old energy. When you heal, your magnet changes. You begin to repel what's not meant for your growth. God can't send you the person who prays for you if you're still entertaining people who play with you. That's not cruelty, it's clarity. He's teaching you to discern the difference between distractions and destiny. Preparation doesn't mean perfection, it means awareness. God isn't waiting for you to be flawless. He's waiting for you to be faithful. He's looking for someone who's willing to grow, to learn, to unlearn, to rebuild. Someone who's willing to let go of pride, ego, and fear to make space for purpose-driven love. Because the truth is, relationships aren't just about romance. They're about assignment. The right person won't just make you feel good. They'll call you higher. They'll challenge your complacency, nurture your potential, and stretch your faith. But if you're not ready for that, you'll confuse their growth with criticism and their accountability with control. That's why God won't send what you're not mature enough to receive. God doesn't want you to just fall in love. He wants you to stay in love. And staying in love requires work, grace, forgiveness, communication, humility. It requires you to be whole enough to not make your partner your healer. It requires you to know your identity so clearly that their presence adds to you but never defines you. God wants you to be so rooted in Him that love becomes an overflow, not a fix. Think of the waiting season like a divine rehearsal. God is preparing you behind the curtain so you can perform gracefully when the spotlight hits. He's teaching you patience, empathy, consistency, the very qualities that sustain relationships, because love is not maintained by emotion, but by intention. The butterflies will fade, but purpose will remain. And God wants you to be ready for the staying part of love, not just the starting part. Some of you are asking, Lord, why does it take so long? But if you saw what He's protecting you from, you'd thank Him for the delay. He's not just aligning you with a partner. He's aligning you with purpose. He's preparing someone who can handle your calling, not just your charm. Someone who can love your depth, not just your surface. And that takes time, because God doesn't build anything unstable. When you're finally ready, the waiting won't feel wasted. It'll feel wise. You'll look back and realize that every lonely night was shaping your discernment. Every heartbreak was pruning your standards. Every delay was divine training. Because God was never saying no, He was saying not yet. Because you're too valuable to give away unready. So if it feels like nothing's happening, trust that everything is. You're being strengthened in silence. You're being prepared for partnership that won't just make you happy, but holy. And when you finally meet that person, you'll understand why it had to take this long, because God wasn't just sending you love, He was sending you lasting love. Boundaries are not walls, they're gates of wisdom. They don't keep love out, they teach it how to come in. When you truly start to love yourself, you realize that protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's sacred. It's saying, I honor what God is doing in me too much to let anyone handle it carelessly, because your heart is holy ground. And when you start treating it that way, the wrong people will feel unwelcome while the right ones will feel at home. So many of us were raised to believe that love means saying yes to everything, tolerating anything, and sacrificing ourselves to keep others comfortable. But that's not love. That's emotional codependency. Love without boundaries becomes bondage. You can't carry your purpose if you're constantly bleeding for people who refuse to stop cutting you. Boundaries are not rejection, they're revelation. They reveal who's meant to grow with you and who's only meant to drain you. When you respect your own heart, you stop apologizing for your standards. You stop feeling guilty for needing space. You stop explaining your worth to people who benefit from misunderstanding it. Because real love honors boundaries. It doesn't resent them. When someone loves you in alignment with God, they'll see your boundaries not as a barrier, but as a guide to how to love you better. But when someone only loves your availability, your boundaries will offend them. And that's how you know who's truly connected to your spirit. Boundaries are not a sign of fear, they're a sign of healing. Fear says, I'm building walls because I don't trust anyone. Healing says, I'm setting boundaries because I finally trust myself. When you've been broken, betrayed, or overlooked, your instinct might be to harden your heart. But God never called you to be hard. He called you to be whole. And wholeness requires structure. It means your love has guidelines. It means your heart has discernment. It means your peace has a price tag that not everyone can afford. There's a sacred strength in learning to say no without guilt and yes without resentment, because no is not a rejection. It's a declaration that your energy is valuable. Every time you say no to something that drains you, you're saying yes to something that sustains you. Boundaries teach people how to treat you, but more importantly, they teach you how to treat yourself. When you keep crossing your own boundaries to please others, you're not being kind. You're being self-abandoning. And you can't attract people who respect you while you're modeling self-neglect. God designed boundaries as part of divine order. Even in creation, he set boundaries: light from darkness, land from sea, day from night. He separated things so they could function properly. Boundaries bring clarity, and clarity brings peace. When you let everything and everyone invade your space, confusion follows. But when you align your boundaries with your values, your life begins to reflect your growth. You start to see that peace isn't the absence of problems, it's the presence of proper limits. A healed heart no longer needs to prove love by overextending, because now you understand that love isn't measured by how much you suffer, it's measured by how much you grow. Boundaries don't mean you love less, they mean you've learned how to love right. They mean you understand that love without truth is enabling, and truth without love is cruelty. Boundaries are where love and wisdom meet. They say, I love you, but I also love myself. The moment you start setting boundaries, the world will test you. People who were comfortable with your compliance will question your change. They'll call you distant, selfish, or different. Don't let that guilt pull you back into places God pulled you out of. Growth always offends comfort. When you start protecting your energy, people who were benefiting from your lack of boundaries will try to shame you back into your old self. But remember this, your old self was dying from the weight of people pleasing. You're not obligated to explain your healing to anyone who contributed to your pain. Boundaries are spiritual discipline. They remind you that your body, your time, your mind, and your emotions are temples of the Holy Spirit. You are not public property. You are divine assignment. And anyone who wants access must come with honor. The right person won't be intimidated by your boundaries. They'll be drawn to them, because healthy people are attracted to healthy patterns. They'll respect your no because they've learned how to say it too. They'll understand that boundaries create safety, and safety creates intimacy. When you lack boundaries, you live in constant emotional exhaustion. You give out of obligation instead of overflow. You carry relationships on your back, hoping your sacrifice will make people stay. But love that requires you to betray yourself is not love, it's bondage dressed in affection. And God never called you to shrink for connection. He called you to expand in truth. That's why he'll let certain people leave when you start respecting yourself. Because the love you're growing into cannot coexist with the patterns you're growing out of. Boundaries don't have to be loud, they just have to be consistent. You don't need to announce them, you need to embody them. When your energy shifts, your silence will speak for you. When you no longer chase, beg, or explain, the people who value you will adjust, and the ones who don't will exit. That's the purification power of boundaries. They filter your circle without confrontation. Every no you speak in alignment with your healing is a yes to your purpose. Every time you protect your peace, you create space for God to move, because he can't bless what you refuse to guard. He can't pour into a vessel that's leaking from the cracks of compromise. When you set boundaries, you're telling heaven, I'm ready for better stewardship. You're signaling that you're ready for blessings that won't break you this time. Boundaries are not just emotional, They're spiritual strategy. They teach you how to honor seasons, respect time, and discern intentions. They teach you when to rest and when to release. They remind you that being available to everyone means being unavailable to yourself. You cannot heal if you keep exposing your wounds to people who keep reopening them. Sometimes protection looks like distance. Sometimes love looks like letting go. So when you love yourself enough to set boundaries, you're not pushing love away. You're preparing a safe place for it to land. You're saying, I'm ready for love that honors what I've healed. You're saying, I'm done teaching people how to misuse me. You're saying, I know my worth and I refuse to negotiate it. That's not attitude. That's awareness. Because boundaries don't build isolation, they build elevation. They clear the clutter so you can see clearly. They free your energy from unnecessary battle so you can focus on divine purpose. And when God sees that you're protecting your heart, He'll trust you with connections that won't require you to lose it. Boundaries are not about keeping people out, they're about keeping your peace in. They're the language of self-respect, the rhythm of self-worth, and the evidence that you finally love yourself enough to stay whole. Healing is not just about recovering from pain. It's about preparing for purpose. It's about becoming the version of yourself that can recognize, receive, and sustain what God has been waiting to give you. Too many people want partnership without healing, but divine love requires wholeness. God won't send you someone to complete you. He'll send you someone to complement the healed version of you. Healing is the door that divine love walks through, and until you open it, everything else will feel like a counterfeit of what you've been praying for. When you start healing, something powerful happens. Your definition of love changes. You stop craving intensity and start craving consistency. You stop confusing attention with affection. You stop chasing chemistry and start seeking connection. Healing rewires your discernment. It allows you to see clearly what once blinded you. You no longer fall for potential, you look for patterns. You no longer chase validation, you walk in value. It's because when you're healed, you finally understand that love is not supposed to hurt, confuse, or deplete you. Love, when it's divine, should make you feel safe, seen, and supported. Healing is the bridge between heartbreak and wholeness. It's the sacred process where God removes the residue of pain that kept you stuck in cycles of broken attraction. Every unhealed wound acts like a magnet. It keeps drawing you to people who match your pain. That's why so many find themselves reliving the same heartbreak with different faces. Until you heal, you will keep calling trauma connection because it feels familiar. But when you heal, you no longer need pain to feel alive. You begin to crave peace instead of chaos, stability instead of struggle, and truth instead of fantasy. You can't attract divine partnership from a place of unhealed identity because divine love requires a healed foundation. If your self-worth is fractured, you'll sabotage the very thing you've been praying for. You'll misread kindness as manipulation, distance as rejection, and peace as boredom. Healing teaches you how to receive love without suspicion, without defense, and without fear. It teaches you that vulnerability is not weakness, it's worship. It's the moment you trust that love can exist without pain. Healing is also humility. It's saying, God, I was wrong about what I thought love was. It's acknowledging that maybe your version of love was built on survival, not on truth. Some of us learn love through pain, so we associated struggle with worth. We thought that being chosen meant being changed by someone else's validation. But healing teaches you that love is not supposed to cost your identity. You learn that you can be chosen and still keep your peace. You can be loved and still have boundaries. You can be connected and still be free. Divine partnership doesn't arrive to fix you. It arrives to expand you. That's why God waits until you're healed, because when you're still bleeding, even love with good intentions can feel like an attack. God knows that unhealed wounds distort perception. So before he sends you someone, he sends you solitude, not as punishment, but as preparation. That solitude is where he stitches the torn places, restores your confidence, and reminds you that you were whole before you were ever loved by another. Healing is an invitation. It's saying to God, I'm ready for love that mirrors you. Because divine love doesn't compete with your purpose, it amplifies it. It's not there to distract you from destiny, but to walk with you toward it. That kind of love requires two healed hearts who can hold space for each other without losing themselves. Two souls that meet not from desperation, but from divine alignment. When you heal, you stop approaching relationships from emptiness. You stop expecting people to fill the gaps that God was meant to fill. Healing restores your ability to love from overflow instead of lack. You stop saying, I need someone to make me happy, and start saying, I'm ready to share my joy. You stop saying, I just need someone who won't leave me, and start saying, I'm ready for someone who can walk beside me. Healing transforms the way you relate to love because it transforms the way you relate to yourself. Sometimes God delays the relationship not because he doesn't want to bless you, but because he wants to bless you properly. He knows that if he sent it before healing, you'd sabotage it with your old patterns. You'd bleed on someone who didn't cut you. You'd carry distrust into a space designed for peace. So he allows the healing to go deep, not to hurt you, but to free you. Because the kind of love you're asking for requires a healed heart to hold it. Healing doesn't make you perfect, it makes you prepared. It teaches you to communicate without reacting, to love without losing yourself, to forgive without returning to dysfunction. It makes you emotionally intelligent and spiritually grounded. It helps you see that divine love is not always instant, it's intentional, it's steady, it's holy. And when you're healed, you have the patience to wait for it. You're no longer tempted by temporary affection because you know the difference between chemistry and calling. A healed person doesn't chase closure, they create it. They don't beg for reciprocation, they discern alignment. They don't try to prove their worth, they embody it. That's the kind of heart that attracts divine partnership. Because divine love doesn't come to teach you your value, it comes to confirm it. It's the reward for the inner work you refuse to skip. Healing also allows you to love differently. When you're healed, you can give love freely without trying to control the outcome. You can love without fear because you know that your worth isn't tied to someone staying. You become less desperate for validation and more devoted to authenticity. You love because it's who you are, not because it's what you need. That's the mark of divine maturity. When God sees you healing, he starts aligning you. He starts preparing someone who's doing the same inner work, someone who's also choosing wholeness over habits. Divine partnership is never about perfection. It's about shared purpose. It's two people who've been through fire but came out refined, not bitter. Two people who understand that love is ministry, not manipulation. Two people who love God more than they fear being alone. Healing yourself is how you tell heaven, I'm ready. Ready to receive without resistance. Ready to give without fear. Ready to walk in covenant, not just chemistry. Ready for love that multiplies peace, not confusion, because divine partnership doesn't arrive when you find someone. It arrives when you become someone. And the beauty of it is this: when you finally heal, love will not feel like fireworks. It will feel like home. It won't trigger your anxiety, it will calm it. It won't test your worth, it will affirm it. It won't drain your energy, it will pour into it. Healing turns your heart into a sanctuary, and divine love only lives in sanctuaries. So if you're in the season of healing, don't rush it. Don't numb it. Don't despise it. This is the season where God is shaping you into the kind of person who can hold sacred love without fear. Because the moment you heal, you create an atmosphere that heaven can trust. And that's when divine partnership shows up, not as a rescue, but as a reflection of your wholeness.